It happened in an instant. One moment, the Indiana Fever's locker room was buzzing with laughter, the kind of easy energy that comes after a good practice. The next, the air felt heavy enough to stop you mid-breath. Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hall stepped forward, their expressions stripped of the usual post-practice smiles, and a sudden hush rolled through the room. Everyone seemed to know, without knowing, that whatever was about to be said wasn't routine. Sophie's eyes locked on the crowd, steady but carrying a weight that couldn't be disguised. Lexi stood just beside her, jaw set, scanning the room like she was bracing for the impact of words that hadn't yet left her lips. No one knew what was coming, but every instinct in that room screamed it would change everything. Sophie was the first to speak, her voice calm, but edged with the kind of tension that only shows when someone is holding back more than they're saying. She didn't waste time with the usual small talk or team updates. Instead, she told everyone in the room that what they were about to hear wasn't easy to share, but it needed to be said. And before the words could even fully form, Lexi Hall stepped in, taking the mic mid-sentence. Her tone was softer, but the gravity in her voice was unmistakable. That's when the news dropped. Caitlyn Clark would be stepping away from the court for the foreseeable future. No mention of a trade. No whispers of locker room drama. No hint at league politics. Just personal reasons, delivered with a firmness that made it clear they wouldn't be saying anything more. Questions were shut down before they began. The silence that followed wasn't just awkward, it was heavy, like everyone present had just been handed a piece of news they couldn't yet fully process. The news didn't stay contained to that room for long. Within minutes, it was everywhere, spreading through Twitter like wildfire, lighting up Instagram comment sections, and flooding TikTok feeds with clips of the announcement. Millions saw it before most people had even finished lunch. Fans began dissecting every detail, frame by frame. Sophie's tightened jaw, the split second where her eyes seemed to glisten, the way Lexi's voice dipped when she said Caitlyn's name. Some swore they saw Sophie's lip tremble. Others claimed they caught the faintest crack in Lexi's tone. And while none of it proved anything, the lack of concrete answers only fueled the frenzy. Speculation roared to life. Rumors about a behind-the-scenes incident, whispers of personal struggles, even cryptic theories about something that happened during the Fever's last road trip. Each theory was more dramatic than the last, and all of them swirled faster than the team's PR could respond. For some fans, the announcement didn't feel like it came out of nowhere. Looking back, they swear the signs had been there all along. Little moments that seemed insignificant at the time, but now feel impossible to ignore. In recent weeks, Caitlyn's trademark spark had seemed just a touch dimmer. Her post-game smiles were shorter, her interviews tighter, her answers clipped when conversations drifted away from basketball. There were small moments too. A deep sigh caught on camera as she walked into the tunnel after a narrow win, a tense exchange with Sophie at practice that both brushed off with a laugh, and that late-night Instagram story. A black screen with the words "Focus on what matters." At the time, it felt vague, maybe even motivational. Now, fans see it as a message hiding in plain sight. Whether or not those moments were connected to her sudden leave, they become puzzle pieces in a story the public is desperate to solve. For some fans, the announcement didn't feel like it came out of nowhere. Looking back, they swear the signs had been there all along. Little moments that seemed insignificant at the time, but now feel impossible to ignore. In recent weeks, Caitlyn's trademark spark had seemed just a touch dimmer. Her post-game smiles were shorter, her interviews tighter, her answers clipped when conversations drifted away from basketball. There were small moments too. A deep sigh caught on camera as she walked into the tunnel after a narrow win, a tense exchange with Sophie at practice that both brushed off with a laugh, and that late-night Instagram story. A black screen with the words "Focus on what matters." At the time, it felt vague, maybe even motivational. Now, fans see it as a message hiding in plain sight. Whether or not those moments were connected to her sudden leave, they become puzzle pieces in a story the public is desperate to solve. If Sophie brought the fire to the announcement, Lexi Hall brought the quiet weight that made it sink even deeper. She's not the type to chase headlines or grab the mic. Lexi's game has always spoken louder than her words. Precision on the court, discipline in the locker room. and an ability to disappear into the background when the spotlight isn't on her. That's why, when she stepped forward and took over mid-sentence, the entire room seemed to hold its breath. Her voice was steady, but there was a faint tremor that no one could miss. For fans who've watched closely this season, her presence wasn't random. Lexi and Caitlyn have been building a chemistry all year, the kind you catch in sideline glances, quick high fives after a big play, or the way Lexi is often one of the first to celebrate a Caitlyn game winner. To see her pause her own growing momentum and stand shoulder to shoulder with Sophie sent a clear message. For Lexi, protecting Caitlyn comes before everything else. What made the announcement even more unsettling was Caitlyn's complete absence from the conversation. In today's sports world, it's almost expected for athletes to control their own narratives, dropping statements on Instagram, posting cryptic tweets, or at least offering a quick message to fans before the official press release. But Caitlyn? Nothing. Not a post, not a story, not even a like on a teammate's tribute. And that silence hit harder because until recently, she'd been unusually active online, sharing behind-the-scenes glimpses from practice, trading playful jabs with Sophie, and telling reporters she preferred basketball over likes, with a smirk. At the time, it felt casual. Now it sounds like a clue. In her last few interviews, her answers had grown shorter, her energy quieter, and any question skirting her personal life was met with a swift pivot. Sitting in that press conference, with an empty chair where she should have been, it was impossible not to feel the weight of what wasn't being said. Caitlyn Clark isn't just another rookie. She's the heartbeat of the Indiana Fever and the brightest star the WNBA has seen in years. Her impact stretches far beyond the box score. She's the player opponents plan entire defenses around, the name that sells out arenas, the face that's been driving record TV ratings all season. So when the news broke that she'd be stepping away, the shockwaves went far past Indiana. Rival coaches began reworking game plans on the fly. Media outlets scrambled to rewrite storylines. And somewhere in the league office, executives quietly wondered what this meant for the playoff race and for the momentum the league had been riding since opening night. For the Fever, the timing couldn't be worse. They were finally hitting their stride, pulling off key wins that had shifted the conversation from rebuilding year to dark horse contenders. Now, all of that hangs in the balance, and every possession moving forward will carry the weight of her absence. If you only looked at the headlines, you might expect the Fever to be reeling. But inside the team, there's a defiance you can feel. Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hall aren't carrying themselves like players preparing for a collapse. They're carrying themselves like players ready for a fight. At practice, the energy is sharper, the communication louder. They've been rallying the rest of the roster in ways that never make the highlight reels, keeping morale from slipping even as questions about Caitlyn swirl. There are subtle but powerful gestures too. Players wearing her number on wristbands, posting throwback clips of her biggest plays, keeping her presence alive in every huddle. It's as if they've decided that until Caitlyn walks back through that door, they'll make sure the world knows she's still part of the heartbeat of this team. It's inspiring, but even they know inspiration alone won't erase the reality of the challenge ahead. For all the statements, all the speculation, and all the symbolic gestures, the truth about Caitlyn Clark's absence remains locked behind closed doors. No one outside her inner circle knows if this is a brief break, a season-ending setback, or the start of something that could reshape her career. Analysts guess, fans theorize, and reporters dig, but the only people who could end the guessing game aren't speaking. And maybe that's the point. What began as a sudden emotional announcement has morphed into one of the most talked about mysteries in the WNBA, not just because it affects the Fever's playoff hopes, but because it's a story about loyalty, protection, and the bonds that run deeper than the game. Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hall have made their stance clear. They'll shield Caitlyn from the noise for as long as it takes. The rest of us can only wait, watch, and wonder how different the league might look the next time she steps onto the court.